Hey, what's up everybody? In this demo I'm going to be showing you the Grunge Clone. So this is a clone of the DoD Grunge. Now if you've watched my demos before, you know what the deal is. I'm going to take the clone, put it next to the original, do some tone comparison, do some tone sweeping so you can get a general idea of how they add up next to each other. So if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, well, okay, this looks a lot like the Metal X that he did. Well, funny thing is, the Metal X and the Grunge were built on the same circuit board. There's only a handful of components that make them any different. And as a matter of fact, as we're going to see through the span spectral imaging, their actual EQ profile is very similar to each other. There's like a handful of components that are different. So what I'm going to offer is complete units or PCBs for all the DIY folks out there. And basically you can build one or the other, or you can order one or the other. Yeah, I'm going to use the same enclosure. I'm going to use the same circuit board because in true DoD fashion, they were pretty clever the way that they offered, you know, what were different products, but still very, very similar. So I'm going to offer that as well because I like both those pedals. You know, when I was learning how to play guitar, they were everywhere because they were cheap, right? So I'm kind of fond on them, to be honest. And I know, you know, some people don't think they're that great, but, you know, I cloned them because I think they're pretty cool. So anyways, enough ranting. Let's take a look at what I did with this. So first off, I added internally a Klon input buffer. A lot of the old DoD stuff, the high distortion stuff, it has feedback oscillation. And what I've done is added a buffer to alleviate that, so you don't get any squeal or any of that stuff when you're using like some of the more extreme settings. I've also added hard clipping and soft clipping options. On the original DoD Grunge, very similar to the Metal X as well, you have silicone hard clipping. That's all you have. Turn that to the center. The hard clipping's off. Same thing as the Metal X. If you turn the hard clipping off, it gets really loud because diode clipping brings down the volume of the signal volume of a pedal substantially. So if you turn it off, what you essentially have is a semi-clean boost if you roll the distortion all the way down, which I'm going to show you. And I'll show you how loud it gets too, because it gets really loud. Like I had the level set to like there or something. Like it's a very small amount. All the way to the left with the hard clipping, you've got LED, a combination of LED and Schottky BAT 46. I really like this clipping. It's a very cool combo. So over the soft clipping side, center, same thing. Center is off. Over to the right, you've got silicone hard clipping. Over to the left, you've got Schottky BAT 46. So that's pretty much it for this. I'm just going to tell you quickly what I did here was I ran this, and I tried to do the exact same demo I did with the Metal X. So if you want to watch them back to back to get an idea of which pedal you actually want to buy, you can do that because I tried to do the exact same thing. I ran this through my Peavey Supreme, which is behind me, ran it through a clean channel, ran it through the dirty channel. With this demo, I actually ran it through the clean channel again, but with the hard clipping off, rolled all the way back so you can hear how loud it gets. After my amp, I ran into an orange cab simulator, and from there into Logic. And from Logic, I just record the audio and export it raw. I don't do any kind of coloring. I want you to hear exactly how this sounds on its own, without any studio tricks. So I think we're good. Let's take a look at the span imaging, and then from that we'll get to the audio demos. Let's do it. All right, let's take a look at the span imaging I did for the DoD Grunge compared to the clone. So what I did was I started off by putting the knobs on the Grunge all the way at noon. As you can see, you've got a spike between 800 to 1K, and then you've got another spike between, let's say 5 to 6K. If you watch the Metal X demo, you'll recognize how similar
the EQ ranges for both of these pedals. Like I mentioned in the intro, they were there's only a handful of components that make them different. They're very, very close to each other. So the same thing, if we take a look at the clone, all the knobs at noon, same thing. You've got an 800 to 1K hertz spike, and then you've got another spike around 5 to 6K. So what I did next is I turned the bass all the way up, turned the highs or the treble all the way down, kept the level and the distortion at noon, and you can see a spike around 150 hertz in the low end, and then another spike, I'd say that's about 800 hertz roughly. And then you've got this shelf, which is very similar again to the Metal X. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this demo again. There's this EQ shelf in the highs between 2 to 6K that's always just there, even if you turn the treble all the way down. So switching over to the clone, same thing, bass all the way up, highs all the way down. You got the same spike around 150 hertz, same spike around 800 hertz to 1K, and then you've got that shelf between 2 and 6. Now, on the clone, as you can see, there's, compared to the original, there's a little bit more of a high shelf there. It's a little bit more dominant. Not much, but a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 decibels. All right, so switching over to the next setting, what I did is I did the reverse. I cranked the bass all the way down, turned the highs all the way up. And what's funny between the Metal X and the Grunge is that the highs, when you crank them all the way up, you'll see this huge variation. So what you've got is actually a dip around 130 hertz with the bass cranked all the way down. And then you've got this, basically, this peak that rises and rises and rises, and you get to 6K, and it basically peaks. And then you've got this funny little valley around like 13K. So kind of interesting there. So next, I did the exact same thing on the clone, and as you can see, it's almost the exact same profile. So I think we're good. I think you get an idea of how the clone compares to the original in terms of the EQ spectrum. So let's get on with the audio portion. Let's put these next to each other and see how they sound.
One thing I forgot to mention in the intro is my buddy Jamin Jaberas did the guitar tracks on this. Put together a drop D grungy medley for you. Check it out.